Faces Unmasked is a podcast of candid conversations that explore the intricate layers of our unique identities, worth, and value. I'm Lorin.
I'm Paige.
I'm Kim. Let's unmask.
Well, welcome everyone.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome back to another episode of True Faces. We're always excited to be here. I mean, even if we're not, we're going to say we are because, you know, the power of the tongue.
Sure. I would say even whenever I'm not feeling great, I'm happy I'm here.
Yeah, that's so true. It
Always
is
feel
really
better.
a dream come true a lot of the time. So it's easy to remember, like, okay, I'm recording a podcast, so I can be happy, you know?
That's nice. That's fun.
Yeah, but so today we got our moms on the hot seat because I'm actually going to be interviewing them today, asking some questions that I have about motherhood, just maybe some questions the viewers may have. It stemmed from this podcast I was listening to whenever I was listening to Sadie's podcast that I had sent you guys. But she's good friends. Her and her husband are good friends with Shawn Johnson, the gymnast, her husband. So it's really cool to listen to these two highly successful females, first of all, and their husband male. So it's kind of like these two highly successful couples talk about how they got through their lives and traveling with kids, because she was an Olympic gymnast. Like she said one week, so she said she had traveled to 3 countries in 3 weeks with her 3 kids. I was like,
wow.
That's literally when I heard that, I was like, we have to do this podcast, because they gave me such a different perspective of what I've kind of heard, seen in my own life, kind of around my normal. And it put me in another world, it felt like, where, there is another normal to other people. Mm-hmm. And it seems like it's a lot of fun. So that's where it all stemmed from. And my first question, whoever wants to start, is going to be, so both of these ladies Lorin has, actually we can introduce, I'll have you tell us how many kids you have, if they're boys, girls, kind of their names and stuff. Just introduce that first. Then I'll go into the questions.
Okay, cool. I have 2 kids, 2 little girls, Emery and Reagan, and they are littles, littles, like 2, okay, maybe not littles, 2 and 4. So I am still in the crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
You're funny. I'm Kim. Mm-hmm. I have 2 kids. I have my son who's 18, and I have my daughter who's 8. And yeah, that's where I'm sitting.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So that's helpful, because I also thought it was not ironic that you both have 2 kids. So my first question for you is, what was your very first thought when you found out you were a mother for the first time? So your first thoughts, kind of what was going through your head when you found out, okay, I'm pregnant with my very first kid, then versus the second kid. Kind of what were your thoughts then? So whoever's ready to start. It's a good one, huh?
That's a fun question.
Yeah, I got an answer for that one. Okay.
I knew you guys would.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so the first one, I was really excited because it was totally planned.
Mm-hmm.
So we were really excited. Versus, which wasn't, okay, what's really fun is, didn't know I was pregnant at first until I could not sleep one night, and I was just not feeling good at all. Mitchell got up early the next morning, went and got me some stuff, I don't know, something to help my stomach, whatever. And then right after he left, I ran to the bathroom and threw up.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, this is weird. But I just so happened to have some pregnancy tests on me. And so.
Just happened to.
Yeah, I just happened to. Well, I mean, like, you know.
Just kidding. I feel like every girl just has some. Or if they don't, they know where to get one quick, you know?
Yeah. And so I took one, and then it was positive, and Mitchell wasn't at home. So what did I do? I don't know. I set something up really cute on the coffee table, like right on the corner, for him to come home and be like, ta-da!
Aww.
But it was fun. And then the second one was not so exciting for me. So with my first, I mean, love her, just saying, she was a lot for me because she's so energetic, did not like to nap, like completely ruined a whole lot of expectations and preconceptions that I had about motherhood, like just threw those out the window. And I was not in a great place then. So then to find out that I was pregnant again, which, funny story, I was going to the doctor to get some hormone balance stuff figured out. And they called me back with my blood work results. And they're like, well, here's some of your levels, but we're going to have to worry about those some other time because you're pregnant.
Oh
And I'm
my
like,
gosh. Oh
I was not happy. I was not happy. I called Mitchell upstairs. He was downstairs with a couple friends, and I called him upstairs and I told him, and he started smiling, beaming. He was
Aw.
happy. And then I'm like, I can't do this. Like, I was not okay, because we were going to wait until our first was 2 before we started thinking about maybe when we might want to have another one.
Yeah.
And our second one ended up being born 3 days after her second birthday.
Oh my gosh.
So it was totally not planned. Didn't expect it. Should have. Hindsight. Should have. But didn't.
Yeah.
And so it really took me several months. Like, we were probably like in the last trimester before I was like, okay, I think this will be okay. Like, we're great now. I love it. She's fantastic.
Oh, but that's amazing. 'Cause, I mean, it's just, and I kind of expected that from all the stories we'd heard of you, you know, from your experience and whatnot. But it is just kind of crazy to think about, like, even everyone else being excited around you, and you're like, why? I'm not excited. And now you're like, I'm not excited. I'm actually scared. And now I'm the only one that's not excited. And I'm the only one that's scared. That's what it feels
And I'm
like,
the one
you know?
carrying the baby.
Yeah, and you're like...
And I'm the one who has to go through all the crap.
Yeah.
Well, then, whatever I put my husband through.
Yeah. So how
Sorry.
did, like, when you started to feel those feelings with your second baby, how long did you kind of keep to yourself about that? And when did you finally, like, open up to someone, like, and say, like, hey, I'm scared. Like, I've been going through this, you know?
I don't know if I ever did. I mean, I was open with it to Mitchell, my husband.
But even that's hard to open, because you said he was so excited. Like,
Yeah, he was really excited, but I was just honest with him. Like, I was in a place where I was like, I don't care. I do not care. I didn't care about a whole lot of things back then. I didn't care about how I presented myself. I'm in the beauty business, and I did not. Okay, now I am. I was not then. Okay. I didn't hardly, I think I washed my face once a day out of feeling of obligation.
Yeah.
Maybe. I did not present myself well. I just wore whatever was comfortable, and I still do, but there's still, like, there's
It's
effort,
different,
you know.
yeah.
There's different. It's different. I just didn't care about a whole lot of things, and with him, I was just honest about it. Like, I am not looking forward to this right now. I'm sure I will get there.
Yeah.
Just give me time. Like, you can be excited. I'm like, you be excited. I will catch up.
That's amazing. I feel like that's
I don't
really
know if
special.
I don't.
Like, for you guys to have that relationship where you can say, I'm not okay. Because a lot of relationships can't do that. It took me a while before I could really show my true I'm not okay self, if that makes sense. Like, there's definitely the hidden one where you're still holding stuff back. We've talked about that. But even to say, like, I'm not okay, I'm not going to act okay, I'm not going to hide it, because honestly, I don't care about anything at this point besides getting myself better. And it's like we all kind of hit that point, I feel like, at some point, and just go weave in and out of it. But, like, being able to still open up to him and say, I'm not okay, but you enjoy it because I'm going to catch up to you. Like, that's cool. I like that you're like, I need my moment, but I'm going to be there. Don't worry, I'll catch up. Like, that's really cute.
I'll catch up.
And it sounds like you may have handled it a little better than you think you did.
Yeah.
Being
I knew
able
I
to
just
do
needed
that.
time. Like, there was really no processing. It's like, I just needed time. Like, I was not the self-improver then that I am now.
Yeah. fair.
I think that's where it all started, was after I had her. Is whenever I'm like, wow, I feel, because after I had her, my hormones like balanced out, and I felt so much better. Just giving birth to her made like I was a whole new person.
That's wild.
Yeah. Like my mom said, she walked into the hospital room after she was born, and she was like, you seem so different. Like she just walked into the room, and I was a different person. And so, yeah. I don't remember where I was going with that.
No, I think that's a nice story. Just like kind of explaining, like you knew you were gonna get through it. You knew you were gonna get through it. But then the day you have her, you birth her, it's like everything's fine. And you did say you were gonna catch up. You said you were gonna get there, like, and you did, whether you knew it was gonna happen or not. So that's awesome. Well, we'll pause your story for now, so we can go to Kim and explain to us what your thoughts were when you had your son, and then how that changed with your daughter.
Easy. I don't feel like I have a real pretty story with my son. Truth be told, I thought I would be a person who never had any kids.
Oh, wow.
Not because I couldn't, but because I didn't want to. And it's not that I don't like kids. I just didn't ever see myself as a mother. So I had been married to my husband then. So Henry has a different dad than Ilana, who's my daughter. I had been married to my husband, I don't know, a year and a half or something. He'd been deployed. This was back during kind of the height of the Iraq and Afghanistan
Oh, wow.
war conflicts, whatever. Over
Was
there.
he Army?
He was in the Marines.
Wow.
And he went through a lot of really hard things. And so he was also not really keen on having children. Like, I think he was still trying to work on stuff with himself too. But I wound up not feeling well. Like, I didn't know what was wrong. I was on birth control, so pregnancy was out of question. Like, there was no way. And it was like weeks and weeks of this. And finally I went to the doctor. I was like, listen, I don't know what's going on. Something's wrong. They're like, is there any chance you could be pregnant? I'm like, no. And they're like, well, we have to test anyway. And I'm like, okay. So I'm expecting them to come back and be like, okay, we'll get the blood test back whenever. And we'll talk about whatever is going on. And they came in, they're like, oh, good news. You're pregnant.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like,
What?
and I had taken probably 4 or 5 pregnancy tests at home prior to that, because there was like, well, some of this stuff is like pregnancy kind of stuff. So I kept testing, and it was always negative. And so again, I really thought this plus this equals no baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, what?
And
That makes sense.
right. But no, I was pregnant, and I was kind of devastated. And it's not the prettiest reaction. And I know there are a lot of people who can't have children that just being told that they're pregnant would excite them to no end. But for me, it wasn't that way. And I'm just being real. So I told my husband, and he was like, oh, okay.
Oh, gosh.
I mean, he wasn't excited. He wasn't upset. You know,
It's almost like he
was like taking it in stride.
yes, like, I know this is A, so I'm gonna be B. So okay, it'll equal.
Okay, we're gonna do this then.
Yeah,
That's
we're
gonna
gonna
get
do
it.
it.
All
We're
right.
gonna get there. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. And I remember going to dinner that night with my dad, and I think he was the first person we told outside of
wow.
like him and like besides my husband and me. And I was so scared to tell him because I'd been married for a year and a half. I didn't want him to know that I'd been having sex.
But honestly, you're like, last thing.
I'm like, my
no.
dad does not. I don't want him to know
Yeah,
this.
like he may have an idea, but he doesn't need to know.
Right. This is like, he can have the idea, like knowing that's normally what happens in marriage, but he does not have to know for a fact.
Yeah, exactly.
That's kind of exactly what it was. And so I told him, and he was excited. So that was kind of that. And I wasn't excited throughout my pregnancy. It was a pretty easy pregnancy. I wasn't dreading it. I was just kind of going with it. I don't know. It was like, okay, this is what's happening and this is where we're going. And so we're going. So I also wasn't like super excited and enjoying every moment of the pregnancy. Like, oh my gosh, look at my belly. I was reading the books and I didn't like do any photos or anything. I think there's one photo of me pregnant, like one.
Yeah.
And
It also seems like that matches your personality, though, because you're
That's
not
true.
an overly, we've talked about this, you're stoic, you're not overly excited. So you just, like, hey, I'm going to take the one picture because I want to just, everyone can have that one picture. But, like, you're still, in your own way, excited and prospering forward with yourself and your life. But you're just not that overexcited person. So, yeah, you can continue, though.
yeah. And so then I gave birth. It was a horrible experience.
No.
It was terrible. There was blood loss. There were mistakes made. There was, it was really bad. And recovery was really hard for me. But Henry has never been a regret. Like, I can't say that my stance before finding out I was pregnant dictated in any way the importance of him and the value of him in my life. Like, he was it for me. And so even later on, years later, my friend Donna, who might be watching this, she might remember some of this. But even after I split up with my ex-husband, I remember being at work and I was doing this training stuff, and the guy who came in to do all the training, I was kind of the point person, so we chatted a bit, and he's like, oh, do you have any kids? Yeah, I have one, you know. And he's like, oh, have you thought about having any others? And I was like, no. And this was a very typical answer for me, though. I'm just recalling. Just know this.
No,
and I was like,
good.
no. And he's like, why is it? I mean, was it a bad experience? I was like, I need you to know that he is so incredible, and he is such an amazing kid. I don't think I would want to even chance it. Like, he's enough. And he always was enough for me. And then I wound up getting remarried. And Jason wanted kids, and so we did actively try for our daughter. And I mean, it didn't take a horribly long time. There was effort given, I guess. I don't know. It's not like some people try for months and months and months, and some people don't. It wasn't completely effortless, but it wasn't ongoing, I suppose. So then, I mean, I was expecting to find myself pregnant at some point, and so that wasn't a shock, and it was fine. And that time, I did a home pregnancy test, and it was positive. First time I did it. Although I did learn the first time, like with Henry, when I didn't think I was pregnant, I thought there was no way. Apparently, I was doing it wrong. You don't pee on the stick. You do not pee on the stick. You pee in a cup and dip the stick. And that will give you an accurate reading. PSA, you guys. Here you go.
Anyways, so now we know how to properly take a pregnancy test.
Pro tip.
I love this.
I thought it was pee on a stick.
Yeah,
Like, I
that's
read
what they say.
That's what they say. That's
did
what
I
I
do?
did. That's what's in all of the movies.
Yeah.
So I followed the directions, and I'm telling you,
Well,
it
yeah,
was
because
like,
they can't have a cup of pee sitting in the
right.
shop.
It was like 5 of them that were negative, and then I finally learned, no, you just pee in a cup and then
Maybe I
dip
did do
it,
that. I don't remember.
and then wait the however long according to
That's
whatever test you're
wild.
taking. And
Oh my god.
Seriously, don't take any parenting or pregnancy tips from TV and movies.
Yeah,
Just
literally.
none of them.
Literally.
Throw them all out.
That's mostly true. However,
Mostly true.
I will tell you, listen, when Henry was little, we would watch the Super Nanny when Super Nanny was still on.
I didn't watch that. But
Well, he and I watched it together. So, like him as a 2, 3, 4-year-old. And he really learned a lot from that. And I would have to say, I think some of his really good behavior comes from that because we would watch together and be like, oh, this is not good behavior. Like,
And you
how
learn
do you think, what do you think is good behavior? And we would talk about that. And so he would like recognize, wow, this is not acceptable. And you know what I mean?
Oh, wow.
Just really interesting. So like Joe, I don't know her last name. She's like total co-parent with me. Anyway, moving on.
I was about to say, do you feel like you learned from the show too?
I think so. But I also just kind of have a natural knack for not putting up with any BS. And so, I mean, it's just true.
Fair.
I don't know if you know this about me. My BS-ometer is it's low.
Yeah.
Anyway, so then I had Illy. She was an easy pregnancy. We were, well, Jason was more excited than I was. I was kind of the same with Henry. Like, here's this thing. We're doing this thing. It's good. I don't think it's bad in any way, but I'm also not like super-duper excited about everything. In fact, I was kind of dreading the labor and delivery because it was so bad the first time around. But I had a really healthy, easy pregnancy again. And then I had her. It was a breeze.
That's nice.
Like,
nice. That's nice.
it was a night and day difference from the first time. And it was great. And I also, at that point, had kind of shifted my, like, how I think, how I operate and those kinds of things. So I really focused on engaging with the Lord during that time. Like, during labor, this sounds really cheesy, but it was legit. Like, I'm completely focused, like, being face-to-face with the Father, sitting in the throne room. Like, I am actively pursuing that experience while I'm in labor. And so these things that are happening are kind of with him, and it was just a completely different experience. Funny thing about when I had Illy, though, the nurse could never tell if my water broke. And until she was delivered,
Oh my gosh.
not in an intact sac, they didn't know if my water had broken. Isn't that funny?
Freaking crazy.
That's weird.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
And it's like, it just blows my mind that pregnancy is made to be this, like, common thing. Like, just, oh yeah, she just the other day was pregnant. And I'm like, I hear these stories and I'm like, this is traumatic shit. Like, what the fuck, bro? Some of these things people tell me, I'm like, what? Like, this is wild. Like, it's just wild. The whole idea of it and
It is
everything that happens. Like, how do you just not know if your water's broken? And it's
I
like,
know.
so you're just gonna, it's okay to just give
Okay,
it
but
back?
also, TV and movies portray water
This is so
breaking
true.
as like this big moment.
And for some people, it is. Otherwise, where would we have that from? But
But I don't think that's the norm at all. I never had anything like that. Obviously, they didn't
They
even
had to
know if
break-
my water had broken.
they had to break my water both times.
Okay.
Yeah.
Both times.
I was not saying that's common from what I've heard. Like, I've heard
Yeah.
people say that that's happened. So interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I got a couple questions.
But wait, I have to tell you
yeah,
something.
keep going. Yes.
I want to tell you about the trauma of childbirth.
Yes.
Okay.
Because I was kind of getting into there. So I'm
Okay.
glad.
I'm not going to tell you actually about the trauma, but what I'm going to tell you about is the lasting trauma. There's a thing called pregnancy brain and mom brain, and I will tell you it's a very real thing.
Yes.
And there's something that happens, and actually oxytocin is released during childbirth as well. There are chemicals that are released during childbirth in this experience that really does have the potential to be highly traumatic. I mean, even in Genesis, God's like, and now you'll have laborious, painful childbirth, right? Like it's built in.
Yeah.
It's an 8,
It's an 8.
Hey!
She back.
right? So it's very widely known that it is a painful experience, but there are these chemicals that are released in your brain when it happens that make that stuff not be what is remembered. It is a very interesting thing. So
That's
even though like
crazy.
my first one was so bad,
It's like we remember
honestly,
the events, but
right, I don't remember the pain of it. I know what happened.
yeah.
I remember the recovery of it, and that was hard. My second recovery was like 2 days later, I'm at a baseball game. Like, I was fine.
That's crazy though. Like it's so because I like went
It's so different.
and saw one of my really good friends who I'd like to bring on here at some point to talk about like even like their pregnancy experiences because hers it was like the pregnancy from what I remember. Hopefully I'm not misspeaking. It was like an easier pregnancy, but the birth and like the delivery was traumatic. I go in there and I'm like, oh man, like I just wanted to hold her. It was like this my poor friend, but like. There's this little baby, and then like a few weeks, months. I don't even know how long she waited. She's back playing softball, and people are like, "What? Like you're insane?" And I'm like, "There's got obviously that
our
now
bodies are
shows.
made for this.
That's so
It's a
wild.
weird thing,
Yeah.
but our bodies are made for that. And fortunately, there's that built-in release of hormones or chemicals, whatever it is, that really helps us move on from it. Because truly, when you're going through it, you're like, this is the worst thing ever. But moving away from it, that is so far gone.
Yeah.
It's such a strange thing. Otherwise, no one would ever have more than one child.
True.
I'm just
True.
True.
you know,
Very
and
true.
It's also probably why we're able to have natural births too.
for sure.
That's,
Yeah.
For sure.
It's
That's
supposed to be.
wild too.
I never did have natural birth.
I did. I tried.
You did?
I tried. 20-something hours later, gave up.
Yeah, that's what I was
Fair
very
enough.
similar. With Henry, when I was pregnant with him, I told Josh, my husband at the time, I was like, listen, I do not want to have an epidural. I was made for this. If they could do it 100 years ago, I can do it. I'm going to do this. I had a thing on the refrigerator. It was like, if I ask for an epidural, you say no. Like, this is what we've agreed to.
Yeah.
And then I asked for an epidural, and they're like, yeah, okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a midwife the first time. And I mean, it was so wonderful. Like, I was so excited to have her at this really cute, like, birthing facility. And, like, there was a tub. There was this really nice, pretty bed.
Oh, wow.
There was oils. Like, and it was just this beautiful setting. And I, oh my goodness, labored for hours. Hours. I actually went in and they were like, this baby could happen in any minute. Hours later, I actually started to like regress. And it was like,
You're like,
I'm like,
why?
and then I was getting tired.
Yeah.
So getting tired made it worse. And so I started regressing more
Oh,
because I was
gosh.
tired. And eventually even the midwife was just like, I know you want to have a natural. And normally I would like be all sort of in like supportive of that. But you're regressing, you're tired, which is making it worse.
Dang.
Like, let's just get you over to the hospital so you can have an epidural so you can sleep and then go from there.
Yeah.
And so that's what I did.
Wow.
27 hours.
Right on, girl.
20.
You
Right.
did it.
Second baby, 7 hours.
Oh my gosh.
Still had an epidural.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
But still had an epidural the second time. I was like, I'm going to try not to. Even the second time, I'm going to try not to. I'm going to try it. I'm not going to do it. And then I kind of went back and forth. Every once in a while, I'd be back and forth. I'm like, okay, maybe I will, maybe I won't. I don't know. I'll make up my mind later. And then when I would get in and she asked, it was like not even hesitation. Yes, please.
That's awesome.
That's funny.
Well, at least it makes me feel better too, because I hear so many women say that they like either didn't want it or they were like, yeah, I'm doing the epidural. So it's almost made it more normal for me because I feel like I would fight it too. Like, oh no, I could do this myself. This is fine.
You can.
And you can.
That's the
Yeah,
thing.
you're actually
You
built for
can.
it.
You're
Yeah.
built for it.
But it's
I
like,
didn't want to.
also, we
I
have
was
the
the same.
tools, so why not also take advantage of them and it be okay too? Like, you know.
It
just-
also can depend on what you need. Like
Mhm.
I was pushing through it. Like it was
Yeah.
painful, but I was pushing through it. It was just taking too long,
Yeah.
and I was tired.
Yeah.
So it can be a really useful tool
Mhm.
for women who are like, it's not going well. Like, it could have
Yeah, for
lasted
sure.
longer. It could have lasted longer than 27 hours if I wouldn't have done that.
Jeez, that's so crazy.
And then I was exposed to the wonderfulness of an epidural. So I knew of it by the second one. So I was like, yeah, we're
Yep.
doing that again.
That's funny.
And the first, and I'm glad I did, because the first one, I mean, I pushed for an hour and a half.
Ugh.
Pushed for an hour and a half. Felt like maybe 20 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
Like, my brain had no concept of time. It felt like maybe 20 minutes,
That's crazy.
30 minutes. It was an hour and a half.
Ugh. That's wild.
Seriously. Ask me
Well-
any sort of timeline about that day with my first one. It'd be like,
Yeah.
I don't know. It
What
happened.
about you with yours? Did you have any sense of time?
I don't know. I suppose so.
Yeah.
I don't know how long I was laboring. I think it was probably about 18 hours. I pushed for about 4 hours.
4 hours.
Yeah,
Pushed
it
for
was.
4 hours.
I pushed for it was. I'm telling you, it was very traumatic.
Oh my
Like
goodness.
there was a lot of, and
Oh my gosh.
I
This
thought
was
my hour and a
hungry.
half
I
was
know
like,
there were
woo.
things that were involved, and it just didn't wind up well. I'm fine now, and I don't think I have any lasting like damage or after effects from it. But it was a long healing time. But even then, kind of like what you were saying, I mean, it was like, you know what needs to happen. And so you can't just like give up and walk away from
Yeah.
it. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
You're
Like,
there's no
Right.
walking
So,
away
yeah.
from it.
it's like, I'm in this, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
So.
sounds like you had a really good mental, almost aura when you went in there. But we're going to get into that.
Yeah.
So-
we'll see.
Yeah, I don't know about. Yeah, that's what I was
about
like.
to
It might
say.
sound really healthy, but I don't know
Yeah.
if it actually.
But
like, I
we'll
don't
get
know.
into that because my first question before we get into that, because it's going to be a different question, but how do you both feel, and whoever wants to start again, how do you feel that your relationship with your significant other changed through motherhood? So maybe not just the pregnancy, but also motherhood in general. First one, maybe changing into the second one, kind of all those pivots. Give us an overview of that. We all said Lord.
Oh, okay.
You can start us, Lord, if you're ready.
I think having kids. Okay, before we had kids, this can totally be different for different people depending on what they have in their life going on. But before kids, like, we didn't really have life going on. Like, we went to school, we went to work. Like, we didn't really have a whole lot of like deep stuff life, you know? So having kids was like the first like real life experience that we've had as a couple.
Okay.
And so when you go through stuff like that, I feel like it becomes less, or it's not as superficial. It becomes deeper. There's a deeper connection that's more rooted because you have this big life connection that's bringing you together. So
I
I
like
feel like
that.
having kids for us was that big life shift that we have. That
And it like brought you guys together. You guys
oh
ended
yeah,
up,
like we were great before,
yeah.
but everything was still just kind of like us, just kind of floating. You know,
It's almost like you guys had that, okay, here's a new, deeper reason why we're here. And
Yeah.
you guys came together, it sounds like.
and now it's like now we're not just together because like oh we're fun, we love each other, woo, woo.
yeah.
But now we have like this tangible thing that's like grounding us together. I don't know if I'm like explaining this.
No, it makes a lot of sense, and I
Yeah.
think I'm asking because I know there's going to be people who are feeling that like you are, and there's also going to be people on the opposite side who maybe it didn't bring them together. You know, it brought you and your significant other farther away, or they weren't even.
Well,
with
don't
their
get me
significant
wrong.
other,
Like
you
that
know?
doesn't mean we
exactly
like, although there were things that were like
Yeah.
we missed each other still. Like we had this now little barrier between us. And I mean physical, like child-shaped barrier, like that would keep us apart. And because they took so much time and effort, and, you know, we would miss each other. But at a heart level, like we were bound at a deeper level. If that
I
makes
think
sense.
that's beautiful. And I think that's
Okay.
a great way to explain it because I understand that too.
Yeah.
So thank you. I love that explanation. Are you ready, Kim?
Sure.
Let's do it. So what do you feel like was your your relationship difference? Because you know we've explained now Henry has the one dad, Illy has the other dad. So maybe the difference in both of them.
I think I'll start with Henry and Henry's dad. And I will say, so I just said that I had a really traumatic experience, like at the hospital, really long recovery. And Henry's dad was a superstar through it. Like he was great. And there was no like, oh, you're going to have to grin and bear it because you're the only one who can take care of this child. Like he was very in it, very willing to get up in the middle of the night. We would switch off. He was a natural as a dad. And like knowing how to care for this baby. And I've said in different episodes before, like I was leaving the hospital and like, wait, you're just going to leave me?
Like I get
You're going to let me leave with?
Right.
It's like you knew the whole process, but then it happened and you're like, what? This is real.
Excuse me. Yeah. And I think in that aspect, it was really, really good. But our relationship was not as good. And this actually has nothing to do with Henry the child. It has everything to do with my ex-husband, the person, and then me, the person. And what happened after kind of the dust settled after we had the baby was that I tightened up. So before that, we did a lot of partying, hanging out with all the people, like doing all of the young person things. I mean, I was married at 21. So like,
Oh, I didn't realize that either.
yeah.
Wow.
And to me, I just like tightened up hardcore. And I was like, I have this little human to care for. I completely stopped drinking, not because I felt like I needed to like detox from alcohol or something, but I was afraid that if I drank, I wouldn't be able to be the best caregiver for him. Like, what if I don't wake up if he cries? You know, like those kinds of things. And so I just tightened up. And he stayed the same. And I actually think there's not any blame in this at all. But I mean, he stayed the same and I didn't. And I changed and he didn't. And so we just didn't grow together in that. And I don't think either one is wrong. I mean, he's like not changing and like, I married this person and now she's completely different.
Yeah.
And I'm like changing and I'm like, we're both parents now. Why are you not changing too? And I think in the moment it was really difficult and hard to see beyond my own nose in that. But hindsight, like now I'm like, I don't think either one was wrong. We just happened to not go the same direction.
That makes a lot of sense.
Do you know what I mean? Like that one change in our life happened to like, I adjusted one way and he adjusted one way and they just didn't happen to be the same way.
Yeah. And I think, and that's also not talked about enough with people that do go through divorce. It's just more of, I mean, divorce is so normalized now in society, but I feel like it's not ever talked about like, hey, we had a good relationship and we had this pivotal moment and we just didn't grow together. And it's not like you were doing anything bad. It's not like I was doing anything bad. We just changed. And I've even found that in like my own relationship. Sometimes I focus on bettering myself and improving myself to then I almost get irritated when others around me aren't doing it. And I'm like, and I get mad, but I can't do that. I can't get mad at others for not wanting to change because I have like I love them for them. Oops. So
Right.
it's like you can't get mad when others don't want to change and you're changing, but you also have to be able to make the choices for yourself to either move on because you can
Right.
stay stuck.
Right.
So I
Right.
think that's really
Yeah.
a good way for you to say, like, in the moment it was very hard. But
It
now
was.
you're like, I know that was what needed to happen.
Right.
And it wasn't against anyone or anything. It just is how it was. And I also think that, like we've talked about before, like I know you've touched on, but maybe haven't like dug into like the shame from like faith of divorce. Did you ever feel that? I can't remember
Oh
if you
my
said you felt that.
gosh.
Okay, yeah. See, I thought you had said that. So I thought you had said that. So
Yeah.
with that, I was thinking in my head how I've been reading Genesis a lot, and in the beginning of the Bible, not only is there a lot of like, just there's a lot of intercourse with a lot of people, and it's like I was like yeah. So it's like, and it was kind of opening my eyes to even back in the day, kind of monogamy. Is that what it is when you have different wives? Like
No,
was
that's one.
one.
That's when you have one.
Mono
Polygamy.
one.
polygamy.
It
Okay.
means more than one.
So it was like that was almost normal. They had all the men with the servants and the wives and all this. And it's like, I don't think it should be such a negative guilt thing when divorce happens, because there is a reason that you were with that person in that point of time. Maybe it was to have Henry and then to move
Yeah.
on from each other. But there was a point, there's a reason for all of that. And so I feel like it should be a little more normalized for divorce and not so shamed, because you're still following your path of the Lord,
Yeah.
whether it's
I,
looked at positive or negative.
I agree. However, everybody gets to have their own perspective on faith and how they read the Bible and what it says to them and what it means and all of those things. And so I can respect it. Like if you're anti, it's fine. I'm not going to take that condemnation on myself. I'm sorry.
I think everyone
But I think you're free to
has-
judge and it's fine. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to take on the shame that maybe someone wants to place on me. I did for a long time, but I've really gotten through that and I've reconciled it with the Lord. And I mean, if you think that your word is higher than his, then I mean, you have other things to deal with. That's what I would say.
Yeah. And my stance is like, you made a promise on that day, but things happen.
Yeah.
Sometimes both parties just don't follow through with the promise. And so that's something you have to reconcile with the Lord.
Exactly.
Oh, for sure. Well, and with myself. It's
yourself,
It's not like
and-
it was easy. It wasn't like flippant, oh, yeah, no big deal. I
Yeah.
can talk about it now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, more than a decade has passed.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of dealing with that, wrestling through it. Again, Donna, if she's watching, she was there with me through a lot of this stuff. And it was painful and it was difficult and it was hard on my kid and it continued to be hard on him. The decision that we made and the inability for us to not be explosive together really did change his life too. So I don't take any of that lightly. I don't know. I hope that he was better off with us not together, but I can't say that. I don't actually know that, but I hope that he feels like he's had a full life.
Oh, I think that's all you can do and all you can give. Because I've also seen the opposite, where people will stay together, or when they're not supposed to be because of the kids, and then how that affects the kids and
Sure.
their relationships. So I mean, there's also, it's always the different side of the pendulum, and that's why I respect that part of your life, and why I like you talking about it, because I think you guys have done a great job.
That's nice.
Um,
We've really focused on. I mean, we co-parent well together, and I know that that's like a word that people throw around all the time. But I really like his dad. I have a lot of love for him. I have a lot of respect for him. Honestly, after we split up, I saw him become an incredible dad. Like, great for Henry.
That's awesome.
And not everyone who's gone through divorce can say that about their ex. I wish they could. Like, I
Yeah.
wish you could get to a point where you could at least appreciate the human and the role they play in this other human's life. I think that's valuable. I mean, there was a reason that we got together to begin with. Like, I liked him. And just because we don't work together, like, as a unit, doesn't mean that I have to now hate him. You know what I mean?
That's
like,
amazing.
I don't know. I have such a hard time thinking that you could go one day from loving so intensely that you want to get married to then absolutely abhorring and hating a person. I just don't have it in my blood to hate. I'll just be honest. And
Yeah.
I don't think it works. I don't think it works for the kid. I don't think it works for the two people who had differences. I just don't think it serves well. And even if you're angry, I think those are things that you've got to kind of wrestle through and get past, because even in divorce, the reason you're not staying together is because you can't do this together. But if you hold on to that anger, if you hold on to those really horrible feelings, even if it was deeply traumatic and even if it really did hurt you, I think it's worth dealing with that so that you don't have to carry it with you for the rest of your life.
Wow.
Because what is
Yeah.
the divorce then? There was no separation. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's just an interesting thing. Anyway, all that to say, I mean, we're still co-parenting. Henry is now 18.
Yeah.
We're both going to, he's having surgery tomorrow. I mean, we're both going to his surgery.
Good luck, Henry.
But I mean, it's fairly minor.
Yeah.
But I mean, and it's fine. We can be in the same room. We'll chat about whatever.
That's amazing.
I don't know.
You guys really allow the Lord to be there, it seems like, because you.
Well, I don't even know where he is with that.
Yeah, but
Isn't
even
that a funny thing?
But even you just opening up like you're saying, I don't have room for love in my heart. Like I don't have room for hate. Sorry.
Yeah. No, it's fine. I've got all the room for love.
Yeah, well, like I don't have the room for hate because I have so much love, and it's almost like it's just beautiful the way you talk about it, because you really looked at him as the person of the soul, and he was even though you don't know where he's at in his faith, because I really think when you open up your faith to others unapologetically and just allow, you can change how someone can react, because you're just the way you are opening up gives that little glimpse for them to say, huh, like there may be something better than the circumstance I've been told, like that divorce, breakups, everything, you hate each other. And you guys weren't childish, like, oh, we'll just be friends. No, you said, we're gonna figure this out. Who are you at your core? Who am I at my core? And you even helped him. It sounds like without even helping him, I think you helped him. Like, by the way you acted, you showed him there's another way, and we can do this. We can love this kid. We can be together. Not together. We can be separate and love him together.
Sorry, I can't.
You're good. Okay. But, yeah, you can be separated but still create a positive atmosphere for your kids and move forward. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
think it's beautiful because it's not normalized as much.
Yeah. It's also not perfect. To
Yeah.
be clear, it's not
No,
perfect.
yeah.
We still disagree about things.
Yeah.
But guess what? We're fine.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it really has to do with, this is about Henry and this is not about us.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
So now to piggyback, Jason, how did your
Okay,
guys'
so
relationship
my
do?
husband now,
Uh-huh.
we had our daughter,
Mm-hmm.
and honestly, I can't say anything bad. I mean, it was very similar, which maybe isn't the right thing to say because I'm not trying to compare.
Mm-hmm.
But he was also very, very helpful and attentive. Like with Ilya is a baby. I mean, same thing. Like we both are feeding. We're both changing diapers. We're both getting up in the middle of the night, switching off so that we can maximize rest. You know what I mean? And he was there with me in the hospital and very supportive then. He was very supportive when we went home. All of those things. And I mean, it's a different perspective because I haven't been through the entirety of my relationship with him, even as a parent.
Yeah.
And so it's like this ongoing thing. Have we had struggles? Absolutely. Have we had struggles even regarding parenting? I would say yes. They're fairly minimal. But he's a great dad. He is super fun when that is not my forte. I'm not the best at being fun, even with my kids, and they know it. I'm really good at loving and nurturing. Like
I can see Jason being the fun one too.
he's totally the fun one. He's like, let's go to the mountains. Let's
To the mountains.
That sounds like that.
let's go
Yeah.
do mini golf. Let's rock climb. Let's do those things. And I'm like, do you want to come snuggle?
Me too.
I'm like, oh, you're sad. I will hold you.
Yeah. So,
But I think I really do think Jason's a great dad, and it's really fun to go through the journey of like growing into who you are as a parent with someone else. So like to be able to see like how that has shifted, how he operates and how he talks, and not necessarily like if he was talking on a podcast, but how he speaks to her and the questions he asks her. And like, I think it's a really cool evolution of who you are as a person to see some of that part like bud and then really blossom. And then it just continues to grow and it evolves because as they get older, just like Henry's 18 now, me as a parent, I'm not the same as I was with him when he was 2. Because needs are different. And
that's crazy.
there's been
too.
more life that's been
Yeah.
shared and we know each other better, all of those things.
Yeah, for sure. Because I know for sure my relationship with me and my parents has still grown. Like, I think of that. I wrote that down, like, grow as a person while you're parenting, because I think of that all the time. Like, but I was always thinking of it as, like, how you were, Lauren. You're young, you have your kid, and you're growing up while you're, raising a kid.
Yeah.
I
Totally.
think of that usually, but I've never thought of the other side of, like, now I'm the first of the 3 of my family. So I'm the oldest. So they're learning still. So they're still growing up and parenting with me right now. Like, because we're still all learning these new things. So it's kind of like it never stops, which is kind of wild. So it's like that really just
sure.
put another perspective in my head. Like, even as your kids are getting older, you're still growing and still learning with them. Like,
Oh, yeah.
Oh, for sure.
Oh, my goodness. I am so tired of hearing, it's a phase.
like, I don't think it is.
It's a
not.
season. Oh, like, is it?
No.
It is. It is. Don't worry. It is a season. They're like, oh, don't worry. You'll get through this season. And then there will be another one. And then there will be another one. So
Yeah.
it is for a season.
Oh my
but then
gosh.
there's going to be another one after that. So it
Yeah.
really doesn't make me feel much better.
That's so funny. Let me give a flipped perspective just because my kids are a little bit older.
Yes.
Like Ellie's not a ton older, but Henry, I mean, I guess we're done with his childhood, People say this all the time, like enjoy it while you have it because the time goes really quickly. And I remember Henry being maybe like a year and a half old, 2 something. I'm in the grocery store and somebody has like a 7-year-old and they say something like that to me. I'm like, yeah, okay. All right. Yeah, we're fine. We're living it right now. Or it's fine. And then, but now I'm like, it really does go very quickly. He's all of a sudden like living on his own. He is an adult. We went to an optometrist appointment yesterday and I couldn't sign him in.
Yeah.
Because he's an adult now.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
And just like some even basic things. And yes, I set up the appointment. Yes, I was there with him. Yes, I paid for it. Like, yes,
But even
all of
that,
those
it's
things.
like that one thing that separates
Right.
kid from adult. And you're like,
Yeah.
Right. And then there's some of those things that it's like, wow, it really
Yeah.
does go very quickly. And I mean, yes, I know he's 18 or whatever, but it seems like it was just yesterday. He was a little boy. Like he just was little.
Yeah.
And I was having those moments of frustration, and I was having those moments of, the dance parties where the kids will just dance like with full abandon. Like
Yeah.
there is no self-consciousness. I have to tell you, there's a moment where something kicks in and they don't want to do that anymore. So enjoy it while it happens. Like some of those things when it's wild and crazy are the things that you're going to look back at and be like, that was pure joy.
So that reminds me of the podcast I was listening to with oh my gosh, Sadie Robinson. And so she was talking about how her and her husband were on a plane and she was like, it was like an overnight flight and it was with her when one of her kids was really, really young. And she was like, oh my gosh, like we were so prepared, thought it was like gonna go amazing. She was like, the baby literally cried the entire flight, like scream crying. And she was like, I took him in the or him or her, I can't remember if it was one of the girls or boys, but she took the baby into like the bathroom and was like singing. And so she's like, I'm like a cappella singing to my child, thinking no one can hear me. And then her husband comes back and is like, all right, let's switch. And she was like, it was for like a good couple hours. So not only am I singing and the baby's screaming, but the bathroom's occupied for a couple hours. And then when you think they're going to like get out of it, they switch. So she's like, I go get sleep, try to get sleep while my husband's in there now. And now I'm realizing everyone can hear me and how mortified I am because I can hear everything that he's doing. And she was
funny.
like, it got to a point where like everyone was annoyed, but then she was like, at the end of the flight, everyone was kind of like looking at us like, we got it. Like, you did it.
Nailed it.
Yeah.
And so she
You
was
got
like,
this.
and then Sean Johnson came in and was talking about like how they've pivoted their mindset to, instead of like, how can we make this a perfect trip? How can we make everything go right? To how can we just experience it and roll with the punches and make it a part of the experience? And so with you talking about that, that's
so
kind of
good.
what I was thinking. Like, instead of just like, oh gosh, we missed our flight or something, or how can we instead, okay, we missed our flight, well, how can we make this a little fun? Like, let's, or make it a part of the trip, especially with, the different, where we're all wanting to go eventually with our businesses and stuff, like being able to travel, being able to do that stuff. And also hearing like, it made me feel really excited to hear them traveling with their kids and that it's kind of more normal than you think.
It happens. I've traveled
Yeah.
with my kids. Henry
Yeah.
was 6 months old the first time he had a plane ride.
Was how old?
6 months old.
Oh my gosh.
We went to Vegas. And he was fine. I just held him the whole
Yeah.
time, and he was fine. I was very concerned that he was going to be a screaming baby because inevitably there is one. Illy has gone on super long flights. She's gone to South Africa with us.
Wow.
And I was already there. And so Jason was a trooper. And he did the whole flight there. It's like 40 hours there with her the first time and then on the way back. And she was great.
How old was she at the
And
time?
it was fine. She was 4.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
She also, this was also, I'm just going to give a funny little thing.
Yay.
This was a trip where I realized that me saying adult words, it definitely rubs off on her. And we were like on the plane. It was on the way back. And she had, I don't think it was an iPad. It was like one of those,
Like DSs or
like
something?
a doodle draw pad.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
you just draw on it and you push the button and it's gone.
Oh,
And
yeah.
It's like a Magnadoodle except
Those are
for
old
this
school.
generation. Not a Magnadoodle.
Oh.
Well, mine would have been a Magnadoodle
That's what
from
I
my
played with.
childhood, but it's like some pad. I don't know. Anyway, she was like doing this and she dropped a snack or something. And she she just looks over it and she goes, "Oh shit." And I was like, "Oh, dang it.
I love
That
it.
one's for me
I
too.
think
I know that one's for me."
I know
And,
that one's for me.
But also,
Oh,
she
yeah.
didn't say it with any kind of disdain or hate or like at somebody. It was just like,
So
"Oh, well,
casual,
darn
too.
it." That just fell on the floor. And I was like, "Oh, we're going to have to work on that one."
Dude, I love. I think kids are
Oops.
so funny.
I know. But anyway, we went to South Africa. She was there. We did all the things and flew back. But that's 2 really, really long flights for that travel. It really is kind of 40 hours each way, the route that we did then.
Wow.
And she was a trooper. And I'll tell you, we made it fine, and so she was fine.
Okay, I'm getting off of where I was wanting to go, but we'll eventually probably
Yeah.
circle around because we're on this travel and you have traveled with your kids being fairly young age. That was what did you just say? Now I forgot. I hate when that happens. You had said, because I also think it's important that you just said she was okay because we were okay.
Oh, yeah.
So that was also what they talked about on the podcast too. They were saying like how they had trips where everything was kind of crazy and the kids were crazy. But then when they finally changed that mindset to, okay, things that are a problem are now going to be a part of the adventure. And that's even something I would like to try to work on for myself because I do, usually lose it when things don't go as planned.
Sure.
But in life, what goes planned? Honestly.
That's a good
So
point.
it was like they were really focusing on that mindset of if we're okay, if us parents are okay, the kids are okay. And it almost makes it more of a fun experience because they were like, we would go do things. Like when they would travel before kids, they talked about how they would like stay in the hotel until 5, maybe like, go get some breakfast or, do whatever. But now they're actually getting into the different cultures. Like when they go to Italy, they're going to do things at early in the morning because the kids are up and they're ready to go. And so it was almost like they were trading life for life. They were giving life to their kids and allowing them to experience this stuff, but then they were getting life out of it because they did have to put in the effort and they did have to do it, but they kept the composure. They worked together, like you were saying, Lauren, like you guys really did well working together, and it's like you compounded off each other to then have that experience be more positive for the kids, even if something went wrong. Like, that's pretty cool. And so it sounds like that's what you're getting into with your, so how do you think you guys acted to like help her?
Well, I tend to be a stoic.
Oh.
I don't get very excitable about anything.
Yeah.
And so then I think my kids feed off of that. And I think most kids do feed off of the energy that their parents are carrying. You know what I mean? Like if you're highly anxious and carry a really nervous energy, your kids might wind up being the same. Or they might then try to compensate and be the other side of that.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Too. Yeah.
And I don't think it's an intentional thing, but I think it's a human thing.
Yeah.
Like, that happens. And so I guess, I don't know. I tend to be a fairly calm person, but also I don't have a lot of anxiety over being on a plane, whether for a half an hour or if it's a 16-hour ride. Can I be fine sitting in the same place for a while? I can. Can I explain that to my kids? I can. They're still with me. Like, she can lay down, she can lay on my lap, whatever. She can get up and go to the bathroom. She can play on an iPad. She can listen to a book. She can listen to music. There's, I don't know, just like let's take the pandemic, for example. I think we had to learn how to be contained with other people during that. You know what I mean? So if we can be at home and together and not go anywhere for that long, can we do that also on a plane or in a car? We do road trips too. We're actually going to Florida in a few weeks, but we're driving.
Oh my gosh.
So that'll be
fun.
a good amount of time in the car. But I fully expect, Henry's coming with me too, and he's 18, so he's an adult and he can regulate his own emotions, but I fully expect them both to be fine.
Yeah. But even if he can't, he has you guys to look up to be a strong support for that, which I think is really cool. But on the opposite side too, so back to that example of them being on the plane and Sadie said her kid was screaming and all this and that, she was like, now looking back, she was like, we got through it and everyone, kind of got through with us, which is cool. But she was like, I almost wish at the beginning I would have just like leaned into him wanting to stay awake, and instead of us fighting, trying to put him to sleep that entire flight, just like had a dance party or did whatever this baby wanted to do. Because everyone else was sleeping, but I can stay awake with the light on while everyone else is sleeping. And she was like, or we could have swapped off. So that was another perspective that I thought was pretty cool too. Like, you always talk about, Lauren, your girls are amazingly energetic. And so it's like, maybe it's like, sometimes it always seems like it's a lot, but if you lean into the craziness, sometimes I've even found that in my own life. I try to think about that. Like, when things are going crazy, what if I just lean in to see how I can like make it positive, as cheesy as it is, But it's like, that was another example I was thinking too. Like, I'm thinking of your girls on a plane, and I'm like, we'd probably play the whole time. They probably wouldn't sleep. But I don't know. Maybe they would. You just never know.
Right.
But so, okay, back to one of the last questions we'll go over today. This was good. I know. This is good. So,
I feel like I've overshared.
No, I love it.
You all now know all of the things.
So, my last question for you guys is, how do you feel like, let me find that question. Okay, what was your faith like in your first pregnancies versus your second pregnancies? Was it the same kind of, did you grow, all that? That's where we're at.
Good question.
Thank you. Good question.
I feel like I had to have more faith in my second one, but I don't know if I actually executed that properly because I just didn't care about anything. I was just in survival mode during my second one. My first one, I was excited. I was just still kind of floating through life the way I did before with my first pregnancy, just not really enjoying. I did not like pregnancy. I was not one of those people that it's just like, oh my goodness, that just feels so wonderful. No, it was awful.
Yeah. For both of them?
Okay. The first one was probably fine. But the second one, when I was in like my last trimester, was miserable.
Ugh.
I could tell she was going to be bigger than my first. I could just like, this is not, it felt awful. And then I think I had COVID.
Okay.
So
Okay. Dang.
I think. I'm not 100% sure. By the time I went to the doctor to find out, it was past like the timeline for it, so they couldn't tell. But anyway, either way, I got sick, and it was just awful. So for faith, I think my faith hasn't like super changed until after my kids.
Okay. I like
I think
it.
after kids, because after I was floating through life, and then after I had my first, I was broken, and it was just survival mode.
Yeah.
And then second one, I honestly can't remember what I was thinking. Because like I said,
Probably 'cause
I was on survival mode.
yeah.
I was on autopilot. I was just
Yeah.
trying to get through the day.
So then when you got to the
And so
pregnancy.
whenever after I had her and I started feeling more like myself
Yeah.
again, and then I had 2 little ones to take care of, and I actually did care. You know, I
Yep.
was out of survival mode, which I still get into survival mode. I mean, some days are survival mode. There are survival mode days, you know. I wasn't in like a whole survival season though. And I'm actually able to like think clearly. I'm like, okay, this is something that I can seek the Lord on for him to help me in this parenting situation. I did not have that capacity. Like there was nothing, I just had to get through the day. So now I feel like my faith has grown. It's most in my life after both of them were born.
That's interesting. Yeah.
So this point in my life
Yeah.
is
That's
when I'm working on it the most.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
exciting. I love that.
good.
What
That's
about
really
you,
good.
Kim?
With my first, I would say my faith was 100% put on hold. I was in a season of not seeking, not caring, not whatever. I was just not in it. I was saved when I was a teenager, and so it was like in my idle years, I suppose, faith wise. And then because my kids are 10 years apart, it was after Henry's dad and I split up. I just decided, things are crappy enough. I've been trying to do this my own way. I'll try it God's way. I like gave him a year. I was like, all right, God, I'll give you a year. But Henry was with me through all of that. So he was there through all of the growing with the Lord and the seeking and the like really I guess digging in and trying to find like who is God really. And he's one of the people in my life who probably changed my perspective on faith the most. So I would say with him as a child, he and I went through some years of really, I don't know that I'd call it awakening or something, but like really shifting and like faith developing and all of those things. And he got to be there and he got to see that stuff and he got to see the real and the raw and the gritty and the glorious, like all of the things. And so then by the time I was having Illy, I told you I was already well into this current journey that I'm on, and really experiencing encounters with the Lord face to face. And so it was night and day difference between the pregnancies, between the giving birth. Illy has gotten such a different version of my faith than Henry did. Because I'd already kind of done a lot of the unwinding and a lot of the finding again. So she kind of gets, it's funny, like I married Jason, who's a pastor.
Okay.
But Illy has gotten the like unchurched experience, which is a funny thing because of where we all started. And it's just because we're rethinking what is the standard, what's the status quo, and is it really what was intended? I know I'm getting into way different things, but it's interesting because they've gotten such different versions of me faith-wise. So Henry still has this one. He's just been along on the journey the whole time. And Illy kind of came in the middle of it. So
that's really cool. Wow. Well, that's all I got, unless you guys have anything else you want to touch on today.
I have a question for you.
Okay. What's your question for me?
What do you think you most look forward to and most not look forward to in being a mother in the future?
Good question. Probably the one thing I look forward to most is the idea of having like little versions of me and my soulmate running around. Honestly, that's like the most exciting thing to me because I see all these people with these like with their kids, and it's like that's literally a little version of you and the person that you love. Or, you know, maybe for some others it's not that case, but it's still a little version of you. That's literally a little piece of you. So that's probably what I'm most excited about. I want to have a lot of kids.
You do?
I do, yeah.
How many? What are you thinking? What do you
What's
think?
a lot for you?
So like, okay, well,
a lot for me is what I've got.
Well,
But it's a lot.
I've always said I wanted 4 because
Okay.
I want 2 boys and 2 girls. Now, if there's any chance I can have twins, I would love twins. But
Is it in your family line or your boyfriend's family line?
I don't think so. We may have some on his side, but I'm not really sure because there's also different
Sure.
branches out all over there. But so ideally 4. I wouldn't be mad with like 5, but I think I'm crazy saying that.
I don't think it's crazy.
No.
My mom came
no.
from 8, so she's one of 8. My dad didn't have a lot of siblings. I like the idea of a big family, and I just because I want to eventually like get out in a big house in the country, and I want to be able to just have that like. That's what I grew up with, like my grandma's farm and stuff. Like, and we always had this big family that always got together when we were younger, and then we all kind of split apart. So the idea of having the big family excites me. But then probably the thing that scares me the most, is that what you were asking? Or the thing I'm least excited about?
Yeah.
I think I'm least excited about, I don't know how to put it, because I'm not excited about pregnancy, but I'm kind of nervous to see what happens with me mentally, kind of like what you were saying, Lauren. Like, I know I can get very anxious and go through depressing times now, so it kind of makes me nervous. I'm like, am I gonna be the really happy pregnant lady, or am I gonna be the one that gets really depressed? And I'm like,
You never know.
and then just like I think that scares me is learning to deal with that. And I mean, I'm not gonna lie, like, because you have to get off medications and stuff when you're pregnant, and so it's like dealing with that. I think is probably what scares me the most because I've had to do so much work mentally, and like kind of figuring out this avenue I'm going down and like managing all that stuff. That scares me to then I want to get pregnant and I want to have all these kids, but who am I gonna be when I am that person? Because it would be. I mean, if that's a lot of kids, I mean, that's a lot of time, you know? So that's probably where I'm at right now.
That's good. Lauren, if you had one piece of advice for Paige, even stage of her life that she's going to be a mother, but regarding parenthood, what would it be?
Oh my goodness.
I love this.
Oh my goodness. Well, I think the fact that you are already so self-aware of how your brain works, I think you can already start seeking the Lord with that and sitting with that and have him help you through that.
Yeah.
I was not self-aware.
Yeah.
I was not. I was not self-aware. So I just kind of floated. I floated through things. And, I just kind of like felt how I felt, dealt with what I dealt with, and just, I was just all in the feels of everything. And so processing emotions wasn't a thing for me growing up. Processing was not a thing. It was not something I was taught. It's not something I knew how to do. So the fact that you are already so self-aware is really awesome.
I got some good
So
friends.
you're ahead of me. You're ahead of me from where I was in that stance. So I think that's something that you can really lean into.
Yay. Okay.
And you're not going to change kids. So the best thing you can do is change yourself. That's the only thing you have control over is yourself. So you can change yourself way easier than them. And a lot of the times whenever you change yourself and the way you are thinking and the way you're processing the moment right now,
Yeah.
and they're going absolutely nutso, you can change you and your thoughts. You can manage your emotions. And like what we were talking about earlier, they're going to follow suit. So if you lean into whatever's going on, you're going to be way farther ahead than where I have been.
Oh, no, that's great advice. Thank you.
That's good.
What
That's
advice?
good. It's a happy alarm.
Keep that alarm going. And then if you and your kid are in the middle of some knockdown drag out, the alarm goes off and you're like, oh, happy time.
Happy time.
Keep the alarm on.
What's your advice for me?
My advice for you would be to always expect the best, but be ready to pivot if you need to. That's what I would say. I think I've maybe
pivot,
told you
yeah.
before. I was really nervous about the terrible twos, and I received the best piece of advice ever. And it was just like, I never look at it as the terrible twos. Always look at it as the terrific twos, and it will be. And I took that perspective, and
is
it was
huge.
absolutely the best. Both of my children, it was great. Yeah, they had tantrums, and yeah, there was some not so great parts, but I expected the best, and I got the best.
I like that.
And regardless of the circumstances, you know what I mean? You can be in some really down times, but you can look for the best, and you can expect the best, and everything could shift.
Yeah, for sure. That's great advice. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I think that's it today, everyone. Thanks for watching, and I hope you guys got as much advice and enjoyment out of this as I did. Thank you guys again for letting me interview you. I love it. So
We love it. Thanks,
bye,
Paige.
guys.
Bye, guys.
That's it for today. Thanks for listening. Keep up with us on this unmasking journey by joining us every Friday.
Like, subscribe, and follow us on Instagram. This episode is sponsored by Podcast Solutions and podcasttables.shop.
As always, we're glad you're here. See you next week.
Boom, done.